Hey there, this is Ann Westerheim from Ikaru, and just having a little bit of a technical difficulty starting this. I think there's so many meetings online right now, and just waiting for seeing a message in the chat here. Fritz is saying that he can't hear me.
But I can now.
Okay, there you are, Fritz. Okay, just well, here we go. Thanks everybody for joining us. Sorry about a little bit of technical difficulty getting this launched. And today we're going to be talking about tips for working from home, technology and communication and collaboration tools, security, and also opportunities to refocus your business in these times. So I've been talking about business continuity, disaster recovery for years, and during this time it's been natural disasters, extreme weather, cyber attacks, and now we're living in a whole new age. So uncertainty really changes people's behavior. And those are the challenging times that we live in right now. And this is a whole new reality. Everybody's adjusting at the same time. And here at Ikaru, we're working remotely, just like everybody else is trying to be adaptable, work remotely, be as productive as possible. And Ikaru is designated as an essential business, essential service. The IT is an essential service. So our office is actually open with skeleton staff because we're getting still packages delivered, et cetera. We kicked in our business continuity plan like a lot of people several weeks ago. So we have employees working from home. We're on cloud services, and that's voice over IP, VPNs, laptops, LogMeIn Pro, GoToMeeting, and GoToWebinar. And sorry with technical difficulties, I didn't get the video on this in time, but um, hopefully everybody is seeing my screen fine. And we have 2x daily huddles, 9:08 and 12:38 every day to kind of keep the team together and focus during these times. And we have a virtual team meeting every Tuesday at 10. And that's been going on. That's been our meeting time for years and years. We never skip a beat with that, but we're doing that virtually right now. Leadership, this is a challenging time for anyone. If you're running a business, if you're a manager, being an employee in a business, it's just absolutely challenging at the moment. And this is a slide of Vern Harnish's ideas. Hopefully, folks have seen this book, Scaling Up. Highly recommend it. Has some great methodologies for managing a business. But there's a lot to think about right now. The news is changing every day. People are really scared, have major healthcare concerns at the moment, and we're all adjusting. So in the webinar today, we're going to be talking about different working from home strategies, communication, collaboration tools, security. So first up is the technical tips for working at home. So early on in this process, we worked with basically everybody in our community to try to set up different scenarios to work from home. So LogMeIn Pro is the standard tool that we use. So if you have a computer at home, you can connect in via LogMeIn Pro. And that's already built in. Anybody on a support plan with us already has that built in. So you have that tool to do secure login. If you have a video, if you take a laptop home, you'll connect via VPN. And that way, so if you don't have a target computer in your office that you're connecting to, you'll need to connect to your network from your laptop, for example. Fritz, I just want to do a quick sound check and make sure you can hear. Yeah. Oops. Hopefully this is working, right?
And that's fine. Sorry.
Okay, great, thank you. And at Ikaru, the way we operate, basically we've moved our services to the cloud pretty much a long time ago. So we're connecting in via the cloud, webmail, our professional services software ticketing system is all in the cloud. So we're collecting cloud apps. And a lot of folks are kind of working in a hybrid situation right now. For example, email typically is running in the cloud, but there may be some line of business applications that you need to access in your office. So you may use a VPN or LogMeIn Pro. And I'm hoping that at this point, everybody's settled in and at least have, the basics of being able to access what's needed. In terms of phones, at Icaro, so internally we have a voice over IP phone system. That's also, sometimes people refer to that as an internet phone. And you can either take a handset home, which some of our employees have done. You can run through a desktop phone, or you can run through an app on a smartphone. So this modern technology gives you a lot of capabilities above and beyond sort of traditional phone systems that are wired into your office. You can make and receive calls with your business caller ID, right? Either from your smartphone or one of these other options, as opposed to maybe only being able to collect voicemails by phoning in. So really a lot of flexibility. And for folks who aren't up and running on VoIP phones, we really strongly recommend making that switch. And a lot of times you wind up saving money. And I think the big change now is...
I wanted to just add one thought, if that's
Yeah,
okay with you.
please.
So one of the things that's really great about it from my perspective, and I'm remote, is the fact that it's really exactly the same as if I had an extension right in the same office. So especially people who are either routinely working remotely, or people who are in the current circumstances working remotely, you can see who's on the line. The little lights show up, which of your coworkers is on the line, and and then if they get off, you can talk to them by dialing, a 3-digit extension, just as if you were in an internal system. So it's extremely easy to use.
Yeah, big boost for productivity. Another thing we're seeing is that we're kind of in this for the long haul. I think initially the governor said it was going to be a 2-week time frame. That was extended. So depending on where you've set up your home office, if you have now that the time period's longer, it really is important to think about having a productive work environment. Really strongly advise get 2 monitors if you can. Makes it a lot easier to work. And also keep in mind the ergonomics. You probably have at work, you have a business-sized desk, a chair that's adjusted. It is really important, if you're going to be doing a lot of typing on a keyboard, that your arms should be basically at the level of your keyboard when you're typing. You can get carpal tunnel syndrome. It's actually very painful. And it is important to figure out how to have a monitor at eye level, the monitor height, the keyboard height, your posture, et cetera. Now, actually worth thinking about before you wind up with back pain or wrist pain. So often this falls to the bottom of the list, but now that we're in this for the long haul, worth consideration. In terms of communication and collaboration tools, there's a lot of solutions out there. We use GoToMeeting and GoToWebinar. We're on GoToWebinar right now because we're recording this. Otherwise, with GoToMeeting, and I also sorry, I didn't get the video up, and I'm not sure why, but we use GoToMeeting for our internal meetings, and that's like when everybody gets up on the video, but that's for more of an internal meeting or with a known. If we did a town hall with one of our clients last week, and we got everybody on video for that. But there's also Zoom. I'll talk a little bit more about Zoom security. Zoom popularity of Zoom went through the roof because they have a free version. Lots of security concerns about it. I'll talk about that in a moment. Also, Microsoft Teams, Google Hangouts. So there's a lot of different solutions out there. And, it's worth trying to explore what's going to work for you. You will need a webcam. So in these cases, you can get a free version of a solution. Recommend going with the professional version. It's not very expensive at all. You need a webcam. This is built into all modern laptops. And getting a webcam right now, there is a shortage of webcams. If you just go buy one, you'll either have to get one at extreme markup. If you have a PC and don't have the built-in webcam, they are a little tough to get. I've had some on order for a very long time right now, but just something to think about. In terms of running a meeting, you schedule the meeting. This isn't a GoToMeeting screenshot, but just to show you schedule the meeting, you just start up the meeting, and then you have controls on the right. You can say, this is just a sample meeting that I set up, but you'll be able to control your phone. I prefer to always connect via a phone call and not through the computer because I think it's more reliable, but and you have control, and you'll see what's lit green to see how you're connected in it.
By the way,
Yeah, and that's
by the way,
us from this morning.
that's me. So I just wanted to say I'm actually now using a webcam, and I'm using an app on the computer, and it's working extremely well. I can hear, and the microphone on the webcam. Hopefully, I sound fine. So I'm actually using the computer audio a lot, and I find it to be very easy because it's hands free. So just my 2 cents worth.
Yeah, and generally you have the choice of doing computer audio or phone call. This is from our morning huddle today, so we were all together online. Um, I recommend, I have a webcam cover over my webcam, and these are ones we give them out free to clients. So if you don't have one, just email me and we can ship one out to you, or you can pick one up online. But especially now, I'm on video much more than I normally am, except for today, sadly. But um, I just like having it covered, so I know, because sometimes you might forget to end a meeting. I just like to have it covered. There's also some malware that can impact your webcam, so just something to be aware of. And then some tips for video conferencing: just dress appropriately, get over your fear of the camera. It's kind of uncomfortable at first, and then you just got to get used to it a little bit. Think a bit about lighting. Sometimes, in a dimly lit room, it just kind of looks depressing. You might want to play around with lighting, and there's lights you can buy online. They have these ring lights that YouTubers use if the camera's in the middle. A lot of different options out there. Keep your video preview showing so you have a reminder that you're on camera. Also make introductions. Like, a lot of times people will come on to an online meeting and somebody won't announce themselves. And, that's kind of awkward. And it's sort of like, you wouldn't crawl into a conference room and hide behind a plant, and it's kind of the same thing. If you get in an online meeting, you want to announce that you're there. We do have a lot of tips on our blog, so check that out. It's just ecaro.com/blog. Know how to mute your microphone and your camera, and also keep security in mind always. And Zoom has been in the news a lot. Their usage just exploded in popularity, and they weren't really ready for all that. They went up by, they went up by an enormous amount. And you probably saw in the news the whole concept of Zoom bombing, and that's when people were just jumping onto calls. So the thing is, there's a code for each phone call, but folks will post open meetings online, or they get posted on the dark web or wherever. Some people get on these calls kind of as a joke. It is a felony to get on somebody else's call. So Zoom bombing is illegal. Some people view it as annoying, and some of it's extremely offensive and threatening and dangerous. But use unique meeting codes. So Zoom doesn't have to be a security threat. Use a password for a meeting, create a waiting room, and then lock the meeting, and then set things so only the host can share. And I'm just I'm just going to check up. Nancy was trying to reach me. I hope this audio is getting through. Set the settings so only the host can share the screen, and that helps prevent the Zoom bombing from occurring. And then know how to mute all if needed, and if necessary, you can just end the meeting. That's another thing, another strategy. So keep that in mind. We have gotten questions about if you're on the receiving end of a Zoom call, the security is really set from whoever the host is. If you're a recipient, the one thing I would point out is, just be aware of links that are shared through the application. And I wouldn't click on the link in the application, especially for some of these bigger meetings where somebody might be sneaking into the meeting. Oops. And this is a handout from NIST Cybersecurity that has a whole bunch of really great tips on running video calls, looking at low-risk calls for highly sensitive calls, using that green room to lock out. You can lock up the meeting so no one else can kind of sneak into the meeting later. Another point I'd say is not to record meetings unless you need to. Again, recordings of Zoom meetings have just popped up online. So these, Zoom bombers will go in, or people will leave recordings unprotected. And it is kind of worth noting, conversations I've had with people, maybe ask the organizer what precautions they're taking. And I want to get into more on security. That was on Zoom bombing and Zoom security. There has been an absolute explosion in cyber attacks based around the whole coronavirus pandemic that's going on right now. And this is a really common tactic used by the bad actors, where they will just hijack the news, whatever the news is. If this weren't happening right now, there would be a whole bunch of scams and phishing emails surrounding tax season, because the tax deadline would have been this week. But the headlines have really shot through the roof, and you need to be aware of this. And this is something everybody in the company, your organization, needs to be aware of. And also, if you think of people using home systems, you may have kind of scrambled to set up pretty quickly. This creates a lot of low-hanging fruit for the bad actors. In terms of the different scams that are out there, malicious emails, there's fake tests, fake charities. You can get the stuff coming through text messages as well. There's a lot of warnings that are out there. Again, it's really important for everybody in your organization to be aware of this. And it makes it a little trickier when you're not down the hall from somebody. You can't just say, hey, I got this email, kind of looks weird. I'm not sure what to do about it. Some of that communication is kind of shut down when everybody's separated. All right, and then in terms of the reality of cyber attacks, we get questions about this all the time. Businesses will say, well, I'm a small business. Just about all of these cyber attacks are just attacks of opportunity. They're just going over to open networks, credential stuffing on remote access. Visa reports 95% of all credit card breaches are on their smallest customers. So a lot of small businesses think they're under the radar, but not for an attack of opportunity, and not when the cyber criminals know that the smaller businesses probably have the least defenses. On top of all of that, with remote workers and historically smaller businesses not having really established plans for telework, that's a major issue. All right, this is an example of a scam that's supposedly from the World Health Organization, but it's not. You can imagine scared workers getting an email like this. They go in and they want, hey, I better click on safety measures. This is worth getting your team aware of. This is another one. It's a news update on the outbreak in China. And it looks very official. It looks like it contains a lot of information, but it's actually delivering malware. There's an unwanted attachment on there. Here's another fake email. Again, familiarize yourself with these examples. Make sure your team's familiar, because that's going to cut down a huge amount of your risk. There's a lot of technology you can put in place to protect your network, but just making sure users are aware is extremely important. There was a fake COVID-19 map circulating around that was putting malware on smartphones. There's more fake CDC alerts out there. Again, familiarize yourself with all of these. This is an email that contains safety measures, another fake. These are all they're going to put malware on your network. And now you have your home users who are connecting to the office network. They may be spreading malware onto your network. And ransomware attacks are on the rise. This is a fake workplace policy email. So there's themes and variations. These bad actors are really creative, and they're always coming out with this stuff. And there is a fake Corona antivirus that's circulating around. Great graphics, looks real, and that's also a fake. And this is not from Malwarebytes. This is from their laboratory that looks for bad stuff that's out there. The coronavirus antivirus is the fake one. Again, a really good time to get real with your team about strong passwords. Whenever there's a breach, one of the things that comes out is the most popular passwords. If you see any of your passwords on this list, change them immediately. What the bad actors can do now is what's known as credential stuffing. They'll just try to plug these passwords and use them as an attack vector into companies. They know Everybody's scrambled, people are remote, defenses are down, people are worried, they're going to click more. Absolutely strong passwords and unique passwords for different applications. Business compromise emails, again, the wire transfer scams. You got to think of, again, you can't just pop your head into somebody else's office. It's a little harder to do that with everybody remote. These are all over the place. And blackmail emails, these are really scary to get. There are some that will threaten to expose people to coronavirus if you don't pay in Bitcoin. These kind of come and go. Every few months, there's a new wave of these. Right now, hijacking the news are all related to coronavirus. And a lot of times these will be spoofed to look like it came from your own email address. It didn't. It's just they're spoofed to look like that. And if you know what these are, you know it's a common threat. But you can imagine if a scared user in your organization were to receive one of these, they might click on something. They might get very nervous pretty quickly. So just be aware of it. And one other thing that we always like to point out is that a lot of times people are taught that if a website has SSL, if it has HTTPS in the front of it, that means it's secure. It doesn't. It just means it's encrypted. It has nothing to do whether or not it's a legit connection. So sometimes people are tricked into that. Like, oh, I see the HTTPS. That's just like what my bank does. I know this is safe, and it's not. And that's another trick that the bad actors have figured out. Again, making sure your team knows about this. All right, and then in terms of opportunities, there's a lot to think about right now. A lot of chaos, and it's really time to just figure out what to do next. This is Robert Herjavec. He's on Shark Tank, very famous. I mean, he's actually runs the Herjavec Group. Is actually sort of a big version of what Hikaru does. But he has a great quote that I love: "Panic won't get you through this. A clear head will." And it's time to think and get creative about how we all deal with this. Indian Hill Music in Littleton they've actually taken their lessons online. They only missed 1 week of lessons. That's my kids on the right taking a guitar lesson. They only missed 1 week of lessons. They got all the teachers online, and they've actually pivoted now to add a whole bunch of new cool stuff. So they have an online ukulele group for adults. So this is a way that they kind of just were able to offer something new that maybe you wouldn't think, oh, a remote music lesson, that's kind of strange. Now this is kind of a welcome thing, as very creative on their part, and they moved really fast with it. Really great to see. This is Leonid on our team. He's a 4th degree black belt, and he's training and also giving lessons online. He trains the more junior people in his martial arts group, and he's also getting his own training to increase his skill set. And so it's, just make do with what you have. He's doing this via video. Another thing that has really changed recently is telemedicine. The government has eased some of the restrictions, eased some of the reimbursement restrictions as well. So now a lot of medical offices are going to telemedicine. And it's interesting, and Robert Herjavec gave a community talk a couple of days ago, and he said he's just absolutely loving this. He hopes it's here to stay, because it always annoyed him that he'd have to drive to a doctor's office when everything else is online. I was talking to a practice manager of a medical office the other day who was saying, wow, everything takes twice as long because you spend 10, 15 minutes just trying to get the connection to work, because you're trying to establish a connection with anybody anywhere. So the visits get to be kind of inefficient. So it's interesting that there's two sides to this, but now that people have been exposed to it more, I think there's going to be more of an acceptance and an appetite for this going forward. So something to think about. And also, with any new online offering, security is always a major factor. So the EHR companies have built-in telemedicine modules. Some folks are using the online tools like GoToMeeting. GoToMeeting actually has a very strong HIPAA compliance statement. Always use one-time codes. when you talk about what's going on with Zoom security or with this, if you keep using the same code, eventually it's kind of out there, and then people can jump on the call. So, and this might be something you want to challenge. If you're a patient, you may want to ask a few questions about your provider, about what are they doing about security. Another thing to think about just going forward is the whole idea of rolling shutdowns. There's a lot of talk about this right now, and businesses don't want to get caught flat-footed on this. Maybe during this period, it's kind of working, your team is remote, but what about the next time if there are these rolling shutdowns, then what happens next? So think about and evaluate, how is your business running? Are you running with the productivity that you think you can? Is there a way to pivot maybe some of your offerings? Because I think we're in for more of this as we go along, and it's a time to really evaluate what's working and what's not working, and how can you move forward. And there's also a lot of talk about how this whole pandemic is really accelerating the future of work. So the whole idea of working from home, some people will say, wow, I'm way more productive. I think a lot of managers would maybe say maybe not. And but it's going to cause a lot of dialogue. It's great for folks who have long commutes. Assuming you're one of the fortunate people who can be working remotely right now, this has a lot of positives. But how can we stay connected? How can we work? How do those collaborations work? Maybe in an office, maybe somebody's working on something, and it's like, oh, hey, I know I have some advice for you, or you can kind of pitch in and help and collaborate. Well, how do you maintain that when folks are remote? Changes in the way this is going to really impact a lot of what we do going forward. As things reopen, and people are still going to be questioning this and thinking about this. The virus is not going to be gone, and if people have the choice of going to maybe one retail place versus another, and one advertises, here's all the precautions we use for safety and social distancing, and here's how we clean, versus another one that's a giant question mark, you're gonna go to the one that you feel more comfortable with. A lot of talk now, a lot of restaurants have moved to doing online orders, and so takeout business is booming, but how do you pivot on that? And when things reopen, I was reading an article about restaurants are going to move to all disposable menus. This is not just, it's not a light switch where the economy is just going to turn on again. There's going to be a lot of lasting questions. And just this article, I just show the headline of it, but basically what the science says is the disease isn't transmitted through food. So if you get takeout food, there's a pizza ad online. They have touchless delivery. You may take the food out of the box. You can wash your hands after that and you have the food on your own plate. So businesses that are going to educate their population about what precautions they're taking, I think, are going to be ahead as things open up and move on. And now's the time to think about that and get creative. We're just about at 2 o'clock right now. I did want to mention that with the help of our partners, we do have some resources that we can pass along to our community. So Fortify for Endpoint, which is ransomware protection. A lot of questions have come in around what do we do if somebody's using their home computer? First of all, there should be a company acceptable use policy on protecting any system that connects to company data, has to have antivirus on it, at least a minimum amount of protection. We can also offer ransomware protection that's free till June 30th. So if anybody's concerned about home users, I was just talking to our vendor about that yesterday. We have a bunch of licenses we can deploy. Our cyber training platform Evolve, just making sure everybody on your team knows what the current threats are. That's free until June 30th, thanks to our PII Protect partner. GoToMeeting, any nonprofits, medical or municipalities get rights to the full professional versions for 90 days. So that's good for folks if they're not using, like, instead of the free version of Zoom, you can get on the full professional version. VoIP Phones, our partner, has been offering 2 months free. As I understand it, that's been extended, so it's still available. It's also bundled with GoToMeeting. So if anybody's thinking about that, just email info@icaro.com if any of that is there. But anything that we can do through our partners, we're going to pass along to our community. All right, and with that, we're at the top of the hour. And here's my contact information. We have a lot of information that's going on our blog, a lot of tips about security, working from home. Please check out the blog for information. And please email me if you have any questions that you think would, a lot of times that's a great source for making a blog. And we're also on Twitter and YouTube as well. So with that, it's 2 o'clock. And I will check for questions, and anything we didn't get to, please email, and we'll get back to you. We'll follow up with any questions that we get. If you get a suspicious email, anything that you see, anything that we can help with, just let me know. And always think before you click. All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining us.
And thank you. And if anybody needs to get to me, this is Fritz, and many of you know how to get to me, but you can get to me to info@icaro.com as well.
All right. Thanks so much to everybody, and I hope you get a chance to recharge this weekend. Thank you. Bye-bye.